Hello everybody, it's Glitter Informer. Welcome to my first time actually making a serious video on YouTube. Naturally, a fledgling YouTuber such as myself decided it would be a great idea to start off my channel by taking on one of the most successful YouTube channels of all time, WatchMojo. WatchMojo is mainly known for its many top 10 lists, which include one they made 4 years ago about their favorite magical girls. The purpose of this video is simple. They're counting down their top 10 favorite magical girls in anime. You know, those characters who transform into a stronger version of themselves in a long, flashy transformation sequence, and then use that to fight evil, put on public performances, or do witch stuff. Now, allow me to get into a quick digression for a bit. You know how I mentioned transformations being an integral part of the magical girl genre just now? Well, it wasn't always. In fact, for the first couple of decades of the genre, magical girls were just girls who used magic. They usually came from another world and learned to live on Earth. It wasn't until the early 80s until anime like Magical Princess Minky Momo and Creamy Mommy the Magic Angel had their main characters transforming into a more powerful form. Yet, WatchMojo is only counting the traditional magical girl type, and characters such as sorcerers and witches don't count. This means that Sally the Witch, the very first magical girl anime, could say goodbye to any chance of ever being mentioned here. One more thing before we crack this video wide open. I haven't watched all of the anime mentioned in this video. However, I still think I'm qualified to take this on. There have been so many magical girl anime out there that there's a good chance that viewers may not have seen every anime on this list. This means that it's WatchMojo's responsibility to inform us of who the girls they chose are, not mine to research them beforehand. With that, let's dive on in. Number 10 on WatchMojo's list is Amu Hinamori, the main character of the 2007 series Shugo Chara. This happens to be one of my favorite anime ever, so I'm glad they're starting things off in my home court. The narrator starts this one off with a minor mistake, mispronouncing the name of the show as
Shugo Chara.
This title is pronounced Shugo Chara. Chara is likely an approximation of the first two syllables of the word character, given that the titular Shugo Chara are referred to in English as guardian characters. I know I sound like a complete jerk docking someone for a minor pronunciation mistake, and even though the phrase Shugo Chara is said multiple times within the show, it still can be hard to pick it out of a sentence if you don't know Japanese. If this were the worst sort of error in this video, I wouldn't be making a critique of it at all. There just wouldn't be enough to say. Unfortunately, after this is where we get into the real issues. The narrator gives an explanation of the concept of the show. The popular and reserved Amu wakes up one day to find 3 eggs underneath her pillow. These are her Shugo Chara, miniature people representing the possible selves she wants to become. It turns out other people also have Shugo Chara, which can be turned into evil X characters and wreak havoc. By fusing with her Chara, Amu can turn into one of 3 magical girl alter egos and purify the X characters. And then, it ends. Without any explanation as to why WatchMojo thinks Amu is such a good character, we're suddenly on to entry number 9. Spoiler alert, the entire video is like this. All they do is give a basic summary of the magical girls in their shows. They don't talk about how good they are and why they're good, which is a huge problem because opinions are the entire point of a top 10 video. Well, unless you're doing a top 10 based on facts, like Larry Bundy Jr.'s video on the top 10 worst-selling video game consoles. A much better top 10 list than this, and one that I highly recommend. In a well-made top 10 list, after explaining who Amu is and what Shugo Chara is, the video would list what works so well about Amu. They'd also get into some of the flaws in her writing that keep her only at number 10. What makes Amu better than the honorable mentions but worse than numbers 9 through 1? Since WatchMojo never tells us, we gain nothing from watching their video except maybe an introduction to some magical girl shows we'd never heard of. All we have is a skeleton that desperately needs some meat. Oh, and one more thing. At the very beginning of this section, Shugo Chara is said to have aired from 2007 to 2008. But actually, this is the airing time of the first season. 2 more seasons of the show aired after this, Shugo Chara Doki and Shugo Chara Party. The final season finished airing in 2010. Anyways, on to number 9, Muichiko from Tokyo Mew Mew. It's neat that this anime is included in the list because it's what got me into anime in the first place. That being said, why is Ichigo referred to by her magical girl name while Amu is called by her civilian name? Maybe the difference is because Amu has multiple magical girl forms, Amulet Heart, Amulet Spade, and Amulet Clover, while Ichigo only has the one. Once again, this is just a nitpick, but it would be nice if the video were consistent. In fact, Amu's magical girl names are never even mentioned. Okay, on to number 9, for real this time. Once again, we get a brief summary of the show. MUITE is a part human, part cat warrior who fights animals infected with evil alien parasites. And once again, we get no reasoning as to why our friend Ichigo deserves to be on this list and why she's better than Amu. She's just here because. This video does take time to mention Mew Mew Power, the infamously heavily edited 4Kids dub, which would be a neat reference if they didn't take up several seconds playing the dub's opening theme that could have been spent on more important things. You know, like WatchMojo's actual opinions on the cat girl. Oh well, at least they put Megumi Ogata in the video. One more thing I realized while editing this segment, WatchMojo got Ichigo's name wrong. They get her magical girl title of Mew Ichigo right, but they refer to her civilian form as Momomiya and even call her Momo for short. Momomiya is Ichigo's last name, not her first. Her first name is Ichigo, just like when she's transformed. I know this is a mistake, because none of the other magical girls on this list are referred to on a last name basis like Ichigo is. You'd think they'd get the name of one of their favorite magical girls right. As it is, it just seems like they only watched the first episode, where most of the characters don't know Ichigo all that well and refer to her by her last name. That would explain why all of the clips they show of her are either from the first episode or the dub's opening theme. Number 8 is Duck from Princess Tutu. I see we're back to civilian names now. Her magical girl name, by the way, is Princess Tutu, just like the title. Once again, we just get a brief summary of the show and then a short clip from it. No opinions, no comparisons, no nothing. This entry is even worse than the previous two. At least we got to see some attacks from both Amu and Ichigo. Here, we never see what Princess Tutu's powers are or what she does in her magical form. Even in the clips that's shown, we just see Fakir, a side character, in a sword fight as Princess Tutu stands by and watches. There has got to be more to her than that. Number 7 is Ilya, from Fate Collade Liner Prisma Ilya, and for some reason we're using English dubbed clips now.
Okay by me, Ruby. I guess I'll make sure to give you all of my love and affection till you want to change masters.
Up until now, all of the clips have been from the original Japanese versions with the English subtitles, except for the Mew Mew Power opening theme, which was in reference to the dub in particular. Yet here, the dub is default for some reason. Also, the narrator mispronounces the name of Ilya's stepbrother, Shiro, as Shiru. This is especially egregious because right after the narrator says his name, there's a clip of Ilya pronouncing his name correctly.
Good morning, Shiro.
That being said, we do finally get the very first hint of an actual opinion in the video. The narrator says that the series is
tons of fun and features fantastic action.
He still doesn't elaborate on it, though. You'd think that the clip WatchMojo played after this would show said fantastic action after mentioning it, but it features no action whatsoever. We never see any examples of the fun the show has to offer either, so this entry may finally have an argument, but it doesn't back it up at all. Number 6 is Nanoha from Magical Girl Lyrical Nanoha, except it isn't Nanoha who's shown on screen, but Subaru Nakajima, a character who doesn't appear until the 3rd series in the main continuity. They do show Nanoha later, but most of the footage shown is of Subaru, which makes it seem like WatchMojo thinks she is Nanoha. At least we finally get into why Nanoha is on the list. The narrator praises Magical Girl Lyrical Nanoha for its deep story, action sequences, and long time span that goes from Nanoha being a 9-year-old to her being an adult, which lets us really bond with the characters over time. Hey, wait a minute. All of the specific phrase so far has been about the shows, not the characters. In Ilya's entry, we never find out who Ilya is as a person, and here we don't get into what makes Nanoha so special. This feels more like it's ranking Magical Girl shows, not the Magical Girls themselves. This gets even clearer when you realize that every single one of the Magical Girl characters listed here is the main protagonist of her respective show. A lot of Magical Girl shows these days are about teams, not singular characters. This sounds really suspicious and frankly makes me doubt that these are really WatchMojo's top 10 favorite Magical Girls. What makes Amu in particular such a great character? Why is Ichigo a better Mew Mew than, say, Zakuro? WatchMojo, if you want to talk about Magical Girl anime without getting into the characters, just rank the anime themselves. All you have to do is remove one word in the title. Anyway, number 5 is an old one. Cutie Honey from Cutie Honey, a show that began all the way back in the 70s. Yeah, I know I said magical girl transformations won't be a thing until the 80s, but Cutie Honey wasn't actually written or marketed as a magical girl anime. It was actually aimed at boys. The show is only labeled as a magical girl anime in retrospect. Anyway, it seems we're back to magical girl aliases yet again. Her civilian name is Honey Kisaragi, by the way. A good chunk of this entry is just spent watching the opening theme. I mean, it's a good song, but shouldn't we be discussing WatchMojo's opinions on the anime? If we just wanted to watch the anime itself, we'd go on the internet and do just that. Speaking of WatchMojo's opinions, there are none. Once again, it's just a summary of the show's premise.
Her main form is that of the pink-haired, sword-wielding Cutie Honey.
Number 4 is Utena from Revolutionary Girl Utena, and we're back to dubs for some reason. This dub even mispronounces Utena's last name, Tenjo, as
Tenju?
Pro tip, if the letters OU appear in the romanization of a Japanese word, they're pronounced O, not U. As usual, the bulk of this is just a summary and clips from the show, again. At least we get to hear about some of the special things about it, its surrealness, different visual styles, and the relationship between its main character and the Rose Bride, Anthe. It still would be neat if we got more than a single sentence about why Utena is good, because right now the observations are still surface level. Plus, they're more about the show than Utena, yet again. Number 3 is Sakura Kinomoto from Cardcaptor Sakura. Adding to the inconsistencies throughout this video, even when civilian names are used, sometimes the full name is used and other times only the first name is. On top of that, we get another mispronunciation. The narrator calls the Clo cards
The Clow cards.
To be fair, this is the pronunciation used in the infamous Nelvana dub, Card Captors, but that isn't the dub used here, nor does it even get a mention despite Mew Mew Power getting a sizable chunk of its entry. Oh yeah, they're using an English dub of Cardcaptor Sakura instead of the Japanese version. I have no idea why, since the voice acting in the dub isn't all that great.
This is embarrassing!
And once again, it's just a summary of the show, so let's move on. Number 2 is Madoka Kaname from Puella Magi Madoka Magica. Most of this entry is about how this anime is a really dark twist on your typical magical girl fare. Only a sentence is spared about Madoka herself, as the narrator points out that most of the show isn't about her being a magical girl.
This series is not about Madoka being a magical girl.
He does say she still counts as one of the top 10 magical girls, but he never says why. I guess the cool animation of her shooting an arrow into the sky afterwards is supposed to convince us of that, but the narrator himself seems to care more about Homura, whom he outright calls
Absolutely awesome.
Once again, why are we only sticking to lead magical girls? In typical top 10 fashion, we get some honorable mentions before moving on to number 1. We don't get any comments from the narrator on these girls, just them and their names are shown. They are just honorable mentions, so this does work, but in most top 10 lists, the narrator briefly explains what makes them good, but not quite great enough to reach the top 10. The honorable mentions, by the way, are the titular character from Black Rock Shooter, Hibiki Tachibana from Symphogear, and is that Zakuro from Tokyo Mew Mew? Did that show get 2 mentions because it's just that great? Do we finally have a magical girl on this list who isn't a main protagonist? This one was a pleasant surprise for left field, though all we get from her is a clip from her transformation. Dang, that background music is really good. And the final character on this list is none other than the most popular magical girl of all time, Sailor freaking Moon herself. Were this an actual top 10 video with actual opinions, I would never say this, but I'll say it here. Sailor Moon is only at the top of this list because she's the most mainstream magical girl. Don't believe me? That's pretty much the only reason the narrator gives. He says that Sailor Moon
Truly started the magical girl craze in the West. The Sailor Scouts are by far one of the most recognizable and memorable groups of magical girls of all time.
What exactly makes these characters so good?
They're the definition of magical girls.
How did they get so popular? There's got to be something great about Sailor Moon, given that everyone knows her name. Honestly, I think that it isn't just Sailor Moon who's on here because she's popular. I think that applies to every single one of WatchMojo's top 10 magical girls. When I watched this video, I noticed that just about every girl on this list is more mainstream than the last. It really seems like they're ranking the magical girls not by how good they are, but by how popular they are. I mean, WatchMojo gives hardly any reasoning as to any actual quality the girls have, so this is the only thing I'm left with. Now, I wouldn't have a problem with a list that was outright titled Top 10 Most Popular Magical Girls in Anime. Then I'd know what I was getting into. Maybe we could look into some actual statistics by which to measure popularity. For example, maybe amount of money earned off the franchises. However, that's not the case here. Top 10 by itself is generally assumed to mean top 10 best, which means that people come into this video expecting an actual ranking based on quality and only get one based on popularity. And you want to know what's extra disappointing about this? They didn't even succeed at doing that. Tell me, what about that extremely popular household name anime that's been continuing strong from 2004 to this very day, yet didn't appear at all in this countdown, not even the honorable mentions? Where is Pretty Cure? Okay, so maybe you haven't heard of Pretty Cure, but trust me, it is a huge name in Japan. Its very first season, Futariwa Pretty Cure took that whole country by storm. Its two leads, Cure Black and Cure White, have excellent chemistry with each other. They're complete opposites, yet slowly and naturally they become best friends. Though they may be a tomboy and girly girl pair, they're anything but cliché. Black may be full of energy and the source of a lot of the show's comedy, but she's actually a pessimist who constantly squabbles with her fairy partner and is quite reluctant to take on her role as a Pretty Cure, though she does grow into it. And White may seem like a reserved, shy brainiac, but she can be quite the dreamer. She spends a lot of her time after school performing experiments that don't always go all that well, and when she and her friends are threatened or bullied, she's generally the first to stand up for what's right. And the fight scenes, they're revolutionary. Before, magical girls would normally rely on magical attacks, but Cure Black and Cure White get into fisticuffs with the villains they fight. Punching and kicking enemies into submission is their mode of operation, which leads to some excellently animated fight scene on the level of boys anime like Dragon Ball Z. Pretty Cure shows that it's okay for girls to be both masculine and feminine, and that they're just as strong and powerful as the boys. That's not even getting into the 16 seasons that come after Futariwa, or the new one that's going to start airing late this February. Even disregarding all of the Pretty Cure that come after there, Cure Black and Cure White should be iconic enough that one of them or even both of them deserve a place on the list of the top 10 most popular magical girls. But I guess that if a magical girl isn't popular in America, she doesn't deserve any recognition at all, now does she? Before we end this video, no, I'm not saying that it's wrong to have, say, Sailor Moon as your favorite anime. As I said before, there's a reason the show is so popular. There are probably a ton of people out there who have Sailor Moon as their favorite magical girl ever. However, unlike WatchMojo, I can bet you these people have actual reasons why they like their little moon rabbit so much. They could probably write a short paragraph on what makes her character so great, just like I did just now with Cure Black and Cure White. And you know what that means? You, the viewer, can make a far better top 10 list than what's listed here. It doesn't even have to be a video. Maybe try leaving a comment saying who your top 10 favorite magical girls are and why. If you can't come up with 10, just choose any number. People have top 7 and top 5 lists too. It'll take very little time out of your day and no money whatsoever. Even if you happen to be one of the people who made this very video, I am certain that you can improve on your past work. It's been 4 years after all. Alright then, the end of the video is nigh. I hope you enjoyed my first real outing on YouTube, and I'll see you again, well, I have no idea. For all their flaws, WatchMojo is much better than me at having a consistent upload schedule.